pay attention to what I'm saying, because what is being said has the potential to change the way you see life, the way you see how your world works. And if you try this in a matter of 30 days, or let's say 60 days, there should be a drastic difference in how you approach things. So this has got nothing to do with building habits, this has got nothing to do with making money either. This has got to do with a very simple understanding. And if this understanding goes from your intellect to your heart, if it goes from intellectual understanding to emotional understanding, things will change. Now I'll give you the context of making this video. I came across, or I thought about the fact that we have very fragmented minds. We live in a world today that says we must have work life balance. Now, just a day before, I believe we were celebrating International Yoga Day, right? And yoga means to be one with existence. Now, a fragmented mind will say there is such a thing like a work life and there is such a thing like a personal life, and then it will divide us. So, not only are we dividing our lives into work lives and professional lives, we're also dividing ourselves mentally into someone at work and someone at rest. So, the base tendency we have as human beings is to work really hard so that we can rest later. The reason we cannot just rest right now till our time comes is we need to make a living. So, work is that heavy burden we lift, or that heavy labor we perform, so that we can rest later, right? It's quite funny. So our whole lives we are running this experiment of having to avoid what is very burdensome and moving toward what feels good. In Sanskrit we would call this tamas, or inertia, right? What I am suggesting you adopt as a plan for yourself is to flip the switch. Now, the average person, whoever you're surrounded by, is going to want to do things a certain way after they gain a certain level of mastery. So they are not going to be curious, they're not going to take certain risks, and they're not going to dip their feet in uncertain waters, right? And when they are free, when work is over, they want to indulge in entertainment. This is seen as relief from the labor. So let's say labor is something that made you very thirsty. Entertainment is something that's going to quench your thirst, which is why when most people are done for the day, they'll want to retreat to watching a Netflix movie, having a bottle of beer, or socializing with their friends. So here is the fragmented mind, right? Which says we must have a work life balance. So we're someone at work and then we're someone away from work. We must labor and then we must rest. Now, the problem that arises from this kind of a mindset is we're always looking for an escape from something. So, whatever we are doing away from work, we're not necessarily doing that because we enjoy it. We're doing that because this is a relief or an escape. I would like to say we behave like prisoners who have been released when the weekend approaches, which is why we are repeating the same things, right? So in our minds we have made this mental model that had we had all the money in the world, maybe we could have just hung around with friends till our time comes, or we could have watched endless movies, or we could have watched endless amount of shows on Netflix. But since we need to work for a living, we can do this only on the weekends. So people want to, kick back and they want to rest on the weekend, saying that this is the kind of relief that they're going to get. However, what this is doing is it's keeping you stuck where you are, right? Life is happening right now. You never really know when the angel of death will come and take you away from life. So, when you are working and laboring, saying that someday will come where you'll have enough money saved, or well, you'll be finally able to leave the work that you're doing, you'll transition to doing what you love. The problem is you never know when this someday is going to arrive, right? The someday is not part of any calendar as far as I know. So if you want to do what is called yoga, or if you want to be in a meditative state, you have to find work that you can do which does not require you to escape from it. Now, there's a very understandable reason why most people want to escape the work that they do. Unless you've inherited a huge sum of money, there's a good chance you will need to work for a living, right? You'll either be selling your products and services, or you'll be taking a salary in order to make a living. Now, in order to make a living, uh, let's say via a job, the skill sets that you have may not necessarily be the skill set the company is looking for. So if you choose a company based on a certain criteria, let's say salary, then when you approach the company, your skill sets need to match what the company demands for that job, right? So what you're doing is you're molding yourself in order to meet these skill sets. And quite often, the training you take to acquire these skills involves you doing something that you're really not cut out for, or something that you can do but by grinding your teeth, or by complaining a lot, or by facing a huge amount of resistance. So as and when you need to grow in that particular job that you've chosen, you'll continuously have to do things that disrupt your peace, and which is why most employees are doing the bare minimum that it takes in their organization, right, to not be laid off. Now, how do we flip the switch on that? Now, I'm not saying that all of us have access to do work that we love and that pays us well, right? I mean, Instagram influencers and YouTube influencers want you to believe that it's possible for 100% of the people, but for a lot of people, this idea is going to be out of reach. So, the very close substitute that comes to doing work you love is cultivating a hobby, right? When you cultivate a hobby, you're engaged in something productive. By a hobby, I do mean something productive, right? So, by productive, I mean there is output. So, in my case, it would be recording these YouTube videos. So, when you're done with work, now you're confronted by two options, right? You choose to do what is productive, as in something that is inherently joyful. You're not going to be shot if you don't meet those deadlines, or you won't be threatened by anything if you don't meet those deadlines. So, whatever you choose to do here comes from a sense of freedom and liberty. Now, there's a good reason that you show up to office almost every day, right? Because if you showed up, if you took leave for a week without informing anyone, there's a chance they would lay you off, right? That you would be fired very soon. So the motivation to go to work is coming fear, from fear of being laid off, or from the fear of not showing up as much as others and then missing out on a promotion. So, when you're driven either by greed or by fear, which are basically the same thing, you have been stripped of your liberty. So, you kind of feel that you didn't get the choice. Now, when office is over and you're back home, you're not accountable to your employer, right? Because if you have set work hours, whatever is after work is your own personal time. Now, the question is how you use your personal time. If you understand the difference between freedom and indulgence, you'll be able to use your personal time better. So, office got over, okay? Let's say at 7 p.m. office got over, you're back home at 8 p.m., and it takes you about half an hour to eat food. So that's 8:30 p.m., and let's say you have to sleep by 11. You have 2.5 hours free. Now you get to decide what you do with these 2.5 hours, right? You either indulge in something productive, or you think that you need relief from the heavy burdensome work that you had in your office from set time, right? And then you go one of the two ways. What happens when you choose indulgence is your taste for indulgence grows, right? So you watched a good movie, let's say this today, or this weekend. The craving for that is created in your mind as an impression, and you want to be able to do more of that. And this is what keeps building, which we call in Sanskrit as tamas or inertia. This builds on itself, right? On the other hand, you're confronted by the other option of cultivating your hobby. Let's say you want to learn to play the guitar, you want to learn a new language, you want to record YouTube videos, or you want to pick up some new craft. That will happen by your free choice. So you're not threatened with any consequences if you don't really get good at your hobby. So doing what you love to do as a hobby will not require you to escape it, right? When you're doing what you love, do you really need to escape that place? You voluntarily stay there for as long as you want to, and you quit when you feel a bit tired and then you need to take a break. So, probably sleep is all the rest that you require from the work you do when you're not performing work as burden. So in your daily job, the reason you're doing your business or your job is that if you don't do that, you won't have sustenance. However, when you have free time during the day, or when you're not at your shop or at your office or in your work hours, you have freedom to do work that is inherently joyful to you. Unfortunately, we live in times that are making us very utilitarian. So before we do everything, we'll ask, what am I supposed to get from this? As children, we were accustomed to doing things that, in and of itself, were really joyful to us. Now, the reason we don't want to pick up a hobby is we think that it's a waste of time. If we spend time on nurturing the skills of this hobby, it won't really pay off, so might as well learn something that will pay some money. So, we keep wasting time like this doing things we really hate, right? Even if you do make a large sum of money at the end of a certain time period, what you can never get back is that time that you lost. And since life is taking place every moment, life is not going to take place 10 years from now, it's happening right now in the moment. You really need to ask yourself, are you cultivating yourself to be someone miserable, or are you cultivating yourself to become someone really joyful? The option of choosing your hobby versus choosing indulgence and entertainment when you're free during the day when office hours are done is going to decide the future of who you're going to be in the next 5 years, right? So if you choose to cultivate a hobby while working a job simultaneously, you should see a significant improvement in your life. And the reason you're going to see this improvement in your life is you will feel a sense of freedom when you're working. So, when you're working on something that you love, there is a sense of freedom because there are no consequences to doing it imperfectly, right? So, if you're just sitting alone in your room and you're practicing your guitar, your world won't come crashing down because you don't play the notes perfectly. So, in that sense, when you're playing the notes on your guitar, when you're by yourself, you are free to make these mistakes, right? In your job, you're going to be held to a certain standard, there are certain metrics you have to fulfill. So every step that you're taking in your job, you're being inspired either by greed of a promotion or fear of being laid off. So the actions you take are always made under a bit of stress, and sometimes they don't give you the ideal answers too. When you're working from a point of freedom, you're really not concerned with the results, and you're concerned with continuing the activity as it is. And surprisingly, over time, skill and competence develop as a byproduct. And even if they don't, you never feel that you've lost out on something. I've heard this somewhere. I won't say these are my thoughts because I've heard this. It does make sense, so I will repeat it. You do not waste time doing what you love, right? Wasted time is seen from the perspective of a mind that just chases ROI. And ROI is always in the future, right? If you invest, let's say, 100 rupees today, you're not going to get 200 the very next day, or you're not going to get 200 the same day, right? Unless you're doing something illegal like betting. So when you choose work you love, you are grounded in the moment, and life is happening right now. It's not happening 10 years from now. And when you practice this activity that grounds you in the here and now, over time, working really long hours is something you get naturally accustomed to. Now, the only pain point we have in our lives is that what is inherently joyous for us may not pay us really well, but it does pave the foundation for working really long without being exhausted. So in my case, I'm recording YouTube videos at a stage where I don't have that many subscribers. I don't have a channel that's monetized, and I'm still recording these videos, right? So if I were really not passionate about recording YouTube videos, I could say that hey, I've recorded so many videos, I've not really made much progress, just like 10 people or so view this every time I upload the video, so what's the point of uploading these videos? Now, this would be the normal thought process if the sole motivation of uploading these videos was monetizing the channel and making money from that. I am definitely not ruling this part out. If this is possible in the future, it would be amazing. But even though that hasn't taken place as yet, it's not stopping me from recording these videos. And the energy I carry in this video is a sense of freedom. Because whether this video gets 0 views or whether it gets 100,000 views, it's all going to be the same, because the idea behind uploading this is practicing my craft of speaking in front of a camera and honing my communication skills. That objective is achieved, and that is not dependent on the number of views I get, right? I have already got my return, and I think one important takeaway is that the ROI of doing what you love is in the moment and it's instant. The ROI of doing something you hate is always going to be in the future. Keep this in mind. The ROI of doing what you love is instant here and now, and the ROI of doing what you hate is always in the future. So you need to decide over the course of your time, are you going to spend most time doing what you love, or are you going to spend most of your time doing what you hate? As always, you'll make your choice and your choice will make you. So choose carefully. Take care.